Everybody for coming to tonight's discussion for emergency medicine physicians. I probably speak in about 100 different programs a year. I'm going to say the number one specialty that I assist is emergency medicine physicians. Every year I go to ACEP, and in a given year I probably assist in excess of 100 emergency medicine physicians. So whatever your situation is, I've likely seen it a lot of times, and I will continue to see it a lot of times. I'm what they call an independent financial planner, which means nothing more than I represent a number of different insurance companies. I have no ties or allegiance to any one specific company. Tonight I'm going to talk about a handful of different financial topics, and then I have a friend that came tonight. He's going to talk a little bit about liability insurance. His name's David Lieberman. He works for Allstate, and I know that's something that I get a lot of questions on. Should I have a personal liability policy? So I asked him to come and do that because I think that's some value-added stuff for those of you that were able to make it tonight. If anybody feels that a conversation like this would be good for your program, feel free to reach out to me or put me in touch with the coordinator, the chief president. I'm happy to do so. There's some people in here that are speak in their program, and there's others where I'd be more than happy to do so. So with that said, I'm going to start off this evening talking about student loans, because student loans is one of, if not the most important financial topics, I would think, for the majority of people in this room and most of your colleagues as well. So, show of hands, who in here has student loans? Captive audience. And let's get something straight. When the government lends you money on student loans, they're not doing anybody a favor when they give you a 6 or 7% interest rate. And I would think, most, if not all of you that do have government loans, of the direct fashion, depending on when you borrowed and the type of loan that they are, they're going to be somewhere in the mid-5s to upper 7s if you have any upfront costs up. So coming up with the right strategy on your student loans is so important, because tweaking one little thing or going down the wrong road with another thing that may cost you $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 later. Or it may save you $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 later. So there's a big swing here based upon how you go about your loans. And there's a lot of moving parts that are going to dictate what you should and shouldn't be doing with your loans. So when it comes to government loans, and I'll talk a little bit about private loans, but when it comes to government loans, there's going to be a handful of options or elections that you can get into that are going to dictate what your payment is going to be. So the first option is going to be what they call IBR, stands for income-based repayments. If I was speaking to this group 5 years ago and I said, who's doing IBR? Virtually all the hands would go up, because it's really the only show in town. But since then, there's been several other, oftentimes more beneficial programs. But let's talk about what IBR is. It's going to be 15% of your discretionary income. If you are a PGY 3 or higher, it's probably going to be somewhere in the 400-ish, 450-ish per month, monthly payment. If you're married to somebody that makes really good money and doesn't have loans, you're probably going to want to file your taxes separately so your payment doesn't get driven up because they make a lot of money, which would then get calculated when the monthly payment gets calculated. So if you're married to somebody, you have the ability to file taxes separately if it makes sense. IBR does clock time for public service loan forgiveness if that's the road that you're going down. And IBR, it's okay, but typically there's going to be something better than IBR. Is anyone in here doing IBR? Okay, maybe. We'll see. Now the next option came out after IBR, and this is called PAYE. It stands for Pay As You Earn. This came out a couple of years after IBR did, and it has some of the same characteristics and some totally different characteristics. With PAYE, it's going to be 10% of your discretionary income whereas IDR is going to be 15% of your discretionary income. PAYE does clock time towards public service loan forgiveness, if that's the road that you're going down. If you're married to somebody making good money, you have the ability to file your taxes separately to keep your payment from being affected by your spouse's income. PAYE, oftentimes better than IDR, but not everyone is eligible for PAYE. Depending on when you borrowed is going to dictate whether or not you are eligible for PAYE. So a lot of times people that may have some undergrad loans may get knocked out of eligibility for PAYE. Who in here is doing PAYE?
I think I'm probably doing that.
So far you're doing it. You may be doing this next one too. So the third option, hopefully a lot of hands go up for this one because this is oftentimes the best option for residents and fellows. So the next option is what they call repay. It stands for Revised Pay As You Earn. And Revised Pay As You Earn came out in December of 2015, so it just had its 3-year birthday. Once again, some of the same characteristics as the other options, but some totally different characteristics. With repay, it's 10% of your household income. So if you're married to somebody, it's going to take their income into account, which may not be the best thing. So it's 10% of your household income, despite how you file your taxes. So with the other two options, you can file your taxes separately and keep your payment down. With this, it's 10% of your household income. Repay does clock time towards public service loan forgiveness, if that's the road that you're going down. The best part about repay is that there's a subsidy or a credit of 1/2 of your unpaid interest. And the easiest way for me to demonstrate this is to give you an example. So let's just say you have $300,000 of loans at say 6%. So if you got $300,000 at 6%, you got $18,000 of interest. If you're a PGY 3 or higher, your PAYE payment is going to be somewhere in the $250 to $300 per month. So let's just say it's $250. So if you're paying $250 a month, you're going to pay $3,000 for the month. So you got $18,000 of interest. You're paying $3,000. That unpaid interest component is going to be $15,000. With repay, there's a subsidy or a credit of 1/2 of that unpaid interest component, or 1/2 of $15,000. So rather than having $315,000 of loans next year, you're going to have $307,000 of loans. So think about it. If you can get 2 or 3 or 4 good years out of repay, it may be 10 or 20 or maybe even $30,000 less that you have to pay back when the time comes to pay these things back. Who in here is doing repay? You doing that? Probably. So, okay. So who in here is doing repay? 1.5? You think? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to tell you who should be doing repay and who should be doing something else. So get the hands up on this. Who in here is single and has more than $100,000 of direct government loans? Single, more than $100,000 of direct government loans. You should be doing repay. Married and have more than $100,000 of direct loans and have a spouse that either doesn't work or a spouse that makes comparable money and also has loans. So married, more than $100,000 in direct loans, a spouse that doesn't work or a spouse that also works and has comparable loans. Any of them? Repay. Last scenario. Married to somebody that doesn't have loans or makes a lot of money and has a little loans. Any of them? That's going to be either an IBR or a PAYE scenario, because if you're married to somebody that makes a lot of money, it's going to drive up your payment, which would then in turn squish whatever that subsidy is, and then you're going to probably want to file your taxes separately to keep your payment down, and then and then do your IBR pay as you earn option, depending on what your eligibility is. Question?
Certain loans not qualify for DYE.
So there's certain loans that do qualify and other ones that don't qualify. So the ones that do qualify, or the ones that don't, let's say, are going to be the FEL loans and the Perkins loans. If you have them, you can do what they call direct consolidation and change them into a direct loan. Now, if that's the case and you do that, if you do the direct consolidation, make sure that you do not do a direct consolidation of loans that have already been clocking time towards public service loan forgiveness. Because if you lump in loans that have been clocking time, it's going to restart the clock on those loans. So you only want to do the loans that don't fit the bill already. And typically, people don't have a lot of Perkins loans and they don't have a lot of FEL loans. It's usually the direct loans that are going to be the lion's share of the loans. Anyone in here have private loans in the 8, 9, 10% range? Okay, are they student loans though? Okay. All right, once in a while, we'll come across some people that have some student loans in the 8, 9, 10, 11. I actually had some young lady this morning send me an email. She had some loans, I believe they were from Discover, they were at 11.5%. So there's going to be certain strategies I would tell you to do if you do have them. So the fork in the road with student loans comes when you graduate and you figure out where you're going to work. Now, I would say the vast majority of people in the emergency medicine world end up going to work for likely an independent contractor, 1099 type position. There are some Democratic groups out there, but they're getting swooped up left and right, so there's less and less in them every year. And then I would say the minority of jobs in the emergency medicine world are going to be the academic roles that would qualify for public service loan forgiveness. So show of hands in here. Who is going to go down the road of the independent contractor or the Democratic group? Okay. Who in here is going to go down the academic world? Okay. So it's a normal split. I would say 75-25 is what I typically would see or guesstimate. So the fork in the road is once you figure out where you're going to work, you're likely going to be on repay. So once that juice starts running out from that subsidy, you got to figure out a plan here. So the people that are going to go for the independent contractor or the Democratic group, if you have loans in the 6 or 7, 8% range, which your government loans likely are, you're going to likely want to do what they call a private refinance. A private refinance is where you basically go to a company like a SoFi or a Laurel Road or a Common Bond, and you say, hey SoFi, I have $300,000 of loans at 7%. The government is nice enough to be gouging me with these loans. What can you do for me? So they're going to run your credit score. They're going to take a look at your earnings potential. They're going to take a look at whatever your medical specialty is. And they're going to say, okay, you might be at 7% for the government, but we're going to pay off the government of that $300,000, and then we're going to relend you that money at, say, 4 or 5% or whatever it is. So long story short, if you can do a refinance, you're going to be able to save maybe 2 or 3 percentage points on $100,000 to $300,000 of loans. You may save, $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a year just on interest. Why wouldn't you do that? There's really no reason to not do it if you're going down the independent contractor or Democratic group route where public service loan forgiveness is not an option. If public service loan forgiveness is an option, don't even think about doing a private refinance, because once you take the loans away from the government, you're done. You can't go back. So then it comes down to the people that are going to hopefully be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. What do? So the best way to go about that is with public service loan forgiveness, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes, but the best way to go about public service loan forgiveness is to pay the least amount of money possible because it's going to be tax-free forgiveness on the back end. So you're going to likely want to drop into either PAYE or IBR, depending on your eligibility. Pay the lowest amount possible, and then hopefully ride that out as long as you can until the 10-year period kicks in. Now, if you're married to somebody that's making good money, you may want to file your taxes separate at that point, because if you file your taxes joint, your monthly payment's going to get driven up, and then you're going to be paying more than you should, so to speak. So you just need to weigh out the options and say, okay, well, even though I'm filing my taxes separately and keeping my payment down, how much more or less am I giving up if I were to file my taxes jointly and get potentially more deductions, but also have a much higher monthly payment? So I can't tell you what to do. You should just know that there is a calculation out there, and you got to get with an accountant that has some sort of an understanding on loans, that has the software to run your situation both ways. And there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. I just can't tell you what it is until they run it through the software. Any questions on that?
What if you're not signing as an employed physician, it's not an academic role by the hospital?
So it really depends. Sometimes there will be a physician group that staffs or that hires the physicians, and sometimes you may be an employee of that specific hospital. So you're going to want to find out who employs you and whether they are a nonprofit entity or not. And what's that?
They're not.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you may want to, once the juice runs out on repay, if you're on that, take a look at doing a private refinance. And while we're talking about public service loan forgiveness, did anyone in here see or hear about that NPR article? 99% of people were denied. That's fake news. So what they don't tell you is that of these 99% of people that were denied, all you have to do is 3 things for public service loan forgiveness. Now, it's a little more complicated than that, but you got to, number 1, have the right type of loans. Number 2, you need to be working at the right spot. And number 3, you have to make 120 qualifying payments. So what they didn't tell you is that everyone that got denied either didn't have the right type of loans, weren't working at the right place, or didn't make 120 payments. It's simple. Just follow the directions and you're going to be good. The program is alive and well. Don't pay attention to all this media hype. There's nothing that's telling us that this program is going away. And what may happen in the next few years, the government, they may come out with a new type of loan that's not a direct loan, which may not have those same opportunities of public service loan forgiveness. But if you have those loans and you're going down that path, stick with it. Now, I knew there's a handful of Drexel people in here. Who are the Drexel people? 2 things about Drexel. Number 1, unfortunately, you guys don't clock time for public service loan forgiveness while you are in training. And number 2, you guys have a tremendous resource available to you on staff of Mike Clancy. Anyone meet with Mike or know the name Mike? Mike Clancy, he's a financial planner, and there's nobody out there that knows more about student loans than Mike. So use him as a resource. He'll get you going in the right direction. Anyone that doesn't go to Drexel, come to me. And if you have a really complicated situation, I'll bounce it off of him. So that's it on student loans. One thing I forgot to mention. If any of you guys want to do a private refinance, if it makes sense, I do have some discount codes that are set up. Feel free to use them out of here. I can also help you sometimes negotiate lower interest rates with these refinance companies. So feel free to reach out to me on that. And one thing I forgot to say when I initially started, if anyone in here wants to block out time on an individual basis, I don't charge fees. Like, call me, email me, text me. It's easy enough for me to block out some time in my calendar to go through whatever your situation is.